I hear flow state talked about all the time. And honestly, why should I care? Why should anybody care about it?
That is a great question because any of this stuff, it's like, how does it actually affect me and make my life any better?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Let's approach it from that point of view.
Welcome back to another fun episode of What Worked. This one is coming to you straight from my garage here in Los Angeles, California. So if for anybody who's checking this out on YouTube, or if you happen to see a clip and you're like, there's like a string behind Tyler's head. I'm just going to call it the obvious. There's a string behind my head. That is like a little pulley to get into the little attic crawl space here in my garage. And then I've got a surfboard there and a barbell there. So we kind of got all the things. And I think even over here, you can't see it, but there's a bunch of kid junk because I've got kids.
Your set decorator is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, make it look, I'm like thinking grunge chic, like, parent that doesn't have any time.
Yeah.
I was going for the parent that doesn't have any time, sort of motif, if you will. And I feel like they nailed it. So thank you very much, What Work production team. David is probably off the corner being like, what is he talking about? Anyway.
David's shaking his head. How is this my life? Yes,
exactly. So I am thrilled to welcome to What Worked another fan of, we're going to be talking about things that I'm very passionate about, which is remote work, productivity, flow states, all that good stuff. I've got the one, the only Steven Puri. Did I nail the last name? I hope so.
No, nicely done.
There we go. And Steven's company is called Sukha. Sukha? Yes? Did I get it right?
Yeah. 2 for 2, man.
That's my sign to stop. So I'm going to quit while on my head. And as is customary on What Worked, I'm going to ask Steven to go ahead and introduce himself to the What Worked audience and let us know a little bit about, who you are, what you do, and all that fun stuff.
All the
Take
things.
It away.
Absolutely. Hope this is both an entertaining episode and one that has some actionable, helpful stuff. So here's the short for those listening at home or playing along in the car. Here's what is interesting about me. I'm one of the few people you will meet that has been an executive on a couple motion picture lots, as well as raised over $20 million of venture, run 3 startups, 1 successful exit, 2 failures. And you'll learn some stuff along the way. And Tyler and I were talking about sharing some of it. So here we go.
Let's go. Let's before we dig into Sukha, I'm just curious, what is that? The 3 startups, if you don't mind giving a quick little bit. You don't have to go into great detail, but let's talk about the one that was successful, and then maybe a quick little punchline about the other 2 that didn't make it.
Let's focus on the one that worked and, save the pain for later.
The podcast is called What Worked. It's not called What Didn't Work. No,
exactly.
No, we talk about it all.
You as an adult? Well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Okay. So super fun story. And I'll tell you this. A lot of my life has been Forrest Gump-like fortunate things that dropped in my lap, coupled, I believe, with some hard work to make something of them. So here's the deal. First company I started in my 20s, I had met Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin when they were gearing up to do Independence Day. I produced the digital effects for Independence Day. We won the Academy Award for the visual effects. 1,000 people involved, very proud to be part of that team, right? Roland, Dean, and I got along very well. We decided to start a company together to do computer-generated film. Your favorite thing in the world, Tyler, right?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Actually, Independence Day is kind of like, that was my sweet spot for film, where that was the level of effect that I can handle and I liked. It was pretty obviously revolutionary at the time, but very cool.
Appreciate you saying it. It was the 3rd highest grossing movie in film history at the time.
Wow.
And so, you do a film like that, and many people are involved, but Roland, Dean, and I were very fortunate. We could then raise money to go create a company. So created a company called Centropolis Effects, which I ran while they were doing movies, and raised about 15 million, did a bunch of movies through there. About 4 years later, got a buyout offer from Das Werk, a German media conglomerate, sort of like a Liberty Media in this country. And it was a 6x return. So it was a decent multiple for investors, for me, Roland, Dean. And, as one thinks in their late 20s, oh, that worked. I'm really smart. You think you're better looking than you are, smarter than you are.
What could go wrong?
So that was fun. At 28, I'd sold a company. I was like, okay, great. What do we want to do next? And so then later, after I got into film and became an executive, my final job in film was a vice president of production at Fox, which was part of News Corp at the time, now part of Disney. And there I was running the Die Hard franchise, Wolverine franchise, a bunch of action franchises, which was sort of my thing, like sci-fi and action. And that was when I definitely had a moment of the movies that I'm working on, they're going, are kind of meaningless. Like Die Hard 5, there's not a great script. It was just a decision that was made from a business point of view of, if we put out this movie, it will make this amount of money. So let's just do it. It's called show business, not show art. So that was my cue to leave.
That was the Russia one? I'm trying to remember. Die Hard 5.
Wow. It just disappoints me that you know that. It was such a bad movie. You're correct.
I mean, I love Bruce Willis. I'm part of the bald tribe, so you know what I mean. He's one of our heroes, along with
Yep.
Jason Statham.
There you go. Okay. The Rock.
You know, see The Rock. So these are all people that I support, heroes of
Okay.
mine.
These are your people.
Yeah, Michael Jordan. We have some notable people in our crew,
Sinead
but
O'Connor. Right.
yes, but I do remember watching that one, and I was like, man, this one just is. It's off. It's off for sure.
You know what it is I'll tell you this. I know this is a slight digression, but most of the big movies, even the 100, $200 million movies, if you strip out the genre element, and by genre element, I mean the laser weapon in space, the bomb with the LED counter. If you take out all that, the aliens, if you take all that out, at the core of it is like a $2 million indie film that's about some truth about a family.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, it's got to be all kind of the similar storylines and that sort of stuff and framework.
There is that. And with Die Hard 1, the reason it's such an amazing movie that gets quoted by screenwriters to this day when they're talking about their own films is a true story about what was happening in the world at the time, where suddenly women were successful in business and Bruce felt left behind by his wife, and he came to Los Angeles to say, I want my family back, right? There's a lot of truth to that. Die Hard 5 was just, hey man, we can get this out and make money. So it's not a deeply emotional, true movie, you know?
Yeah, it makes total sense. She's at Nakatomi Plaza, and you're totally right. As you put that in my brain, I now think about him. That's him. Just like he's fighting all modern day things, right? He's just like,
It's Taken. You've seen Taken, right?
Yeah. Yes, of course. Yes.
Taken is beat for beat Die Hard. It is.
That is wild. Now I won't be able to unsee that. Okay.
Man who loses the love of female family member.
Yeah.
To someone wealthy. And he's a blue collar guy. And those movies are both wish fulfillment. As much as it seems awful that the daughter gets kidnapped and the wife I'm going to tell you straight up, those movies are wish fulfillment because those two guys who are blue collar, like, kick shoot kind of guys, they see that loss and they say, man, I can't compete with this rich world. But if she ever needed someone who could jump and shoot and kick, she'd love me again. And guess what happens? Bad guys show up and they win the women back because they can do that thing. And both movies are the same movie.
Yeah, that's so funny you say that. That's totally right. And I think about bringing this back full circle, Die Hard 5. Probably the part that I thought was most interesting was when it was like they kicked out the whole power grid. And it's kind of like that's Bruce Willis. Then he's back in his element. He's like, literally, there's no technology, so it's my time to shine. So that's cool. But it sounds like you were mentioning it sounded like maybe you kind of lost your passion for it. Is that fair?
Yeah, Fox was definitely an experience of, let's just say it contrasted a lot with DreamWorks, where I was an executive vice president for Kurtzman Mercy at DreamWorks for 4 years. And that was immediately prior to Fox. And I'll tell you, at DreamWorks, there was definitely a sense of, hey man, go home tonight and try and make your project 1% better. And at Fox, there was an ethos of, hey, go home tonight and make your project 1% cheaper. It's not as inspiring, Tyler. When you go, I'm going to wake up, be 40, 50 years old, making Die Hard 9, it's really not that inspiring.
No, I get it. It's like private equity. It becomes about the decimals more than anything.
Yep, that's a very good analogy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then you're there, and then
so as the French say, bring us back to our sheep.
Yeah, how did we get to founding Sukha?
So Sukha is actually an interesting story in that we all have friends. A buddy of mine was an engineer at Groupon, and asked me to co found a company with him that was around a mindful to do list. And I said, that bores the F out of me. I've used so many to do list apps. I have no
Sure.
insight into the secret sauce that would make me use one for any period of time.
Yeah.
I've tried them and
Hmm.
a month later, I'm not using it anymore. Right.
Totally. I
And
tried that a million times too.
right. So I told him, I love you. I'll help you with this company, but I don't want to be like, your co founder. So in the course of helping him, I became very passionate about flow states. And certain point, he tapped out and said, hey, you know what? I'm having a kid. My daughter's coming. I need to go get a real job and, go work for some real estate company. So what I told him is, I think we're on to something. It's not the product that you were describing, but I think I could use that code base and actually adapt it and make it more of a flow state app. And when I met him, I hadn't even known what a flow state was, but I experienced this. Have you ever experienced a flow state? I can talk about it a bit if you want.
Why don't you talk about it? I'm curious if I have. So I
Okay.
think it's like I think that I have. So now I'm curious to hear you break it down. And also, I guess another question is too. I hear flow state talked about all the time, and honestly, why should I care, or why should anybody care about it?
That is a great question because any of this stuff, it's like, how does it actually affect me and make my life any better?
Yeah,
Right. Okay. Let's approach it from that point of view. And I know a bunch of your listeners are like, I'm a flow master. I know how to do my flow state. I get my work done quicker. Da, da, da. And some are like, I've heard of it, but I'm not really sure what the hell you're talking about. Can somebody,
yeah.
let me set the table for 60 seconds and then let's talk about it. Right. So here's the deal, just to get us all on equal footing. There was a Hungarian American psychologist, this guy, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he had a thesis. He's like, high performers in these different disciplines, athletes and artists and scientists and inventors, and they get into these concentrated states where they do the thing that they're famous for, like the stuff that moves the world, and they describe it in very similar ways. What is up with that? So he did his research. At the end of it, like Prometheus, you want to go up to Mount Olympus, grab some fire, bring it down to the rest of us. He wrote a book, and the book is called Flow, and is the seminal work on this. It's why we call it a flow state. And he said, I love this. He said, I chose this word because it was the most beautiful metaphor I could find for the fact that we are all on the river paddling ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it carries you, it magnifies your efforts. And that's what these people figured out to do. So that is the experience. And I'll tell you, personal experience, I didn't know the term flow state. When I got on an Alaska flight from Austin, where I am now, and I was going to SF, and I wanted to illustrate an idea I had for a feature. So I was going to open up Figma and like try and hack it together so I could show my team the next day in SF, like, hey, we should build this thing, right? We took off from Austin. The pilot was like, Wi-Fi is out, so sorry. And we started landing like 15 minutes later. And I thought, we're landing in Dallas. The engine fell off. They don't want to scare us. They won't tell us what's wrong, but something is drastically wrong. So we just took off. No, I looked down. Over 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. I had no concept of it. But my design was done and I actually really liked it.
That's cool. Yeah, I totally get that now. Okay.
That sort of thing. And the nice thing is I got there and I was totally prepared for run through the hotel lobby, grab a sandwich, go to my room, finish, mocking up the designs. In reality, I called a buddy of mine. I was like, hey man, I have a free night in SF. You want to have dinner? And in hindsight, learning about it, it's all the things me I talked about, where it's like when you're in that state, you lose track of time, you block distractions, you're focused on the work, you're in it. When you're done with it, you actually feel energized as opposed to drained. And that's a lot of what I share now. That's the company. And I built, when you asked me about Sukha, I built a website to help you get in a flow state. It takes the 5 components that people talk about, help you: the music, the timers, blocking your phone, blocking your websites. And it's all there with one big play button. You just hit play. And it's like, if you want to use it for flow states, that's what we do. So that's how it got started. Kind of an odd way about a buddy of mine.
Very cool. And I am a big proponent. Have you heard of the company Brick? That company, it's like a
Yeah,
distraction
Brick's
kind
awesome.
of tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very popular amongst entrepreneurs. And it's funny, as you were talking about that, literally this would be perfect cinematic timing. I got a phone call from probably a scammer or spam person, literally because my MacBook is connected to my cell phone and whatever it is. And so as you're talking, and I didn't realize that I hadn't put it on do not disturb. So I'm getting this phone call. So there's all these that illustrates a larger point that there are all these things in sort of modern society that are competing for your attention. So I completely understand getting into the flow state and how now you need things like Sukha, you need things like Brick to actually be able to do that because all of these things now are so sophisticated and so good at grabbing your attention. I have a question for you, a follow up question on flow state, because you mentioned athletes, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind. I think about really iconic athletic performances. I mentioned Michael Jordan. I grew up
You know the
outside of.
Michael Jordan quote about this, right?
I don't. Please give it to me.
The one where he's like, when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball. It's exactly what
Yeah.
I was talking about.
No, it makes sense as you say that. So I grew up outside of Chicago. I'm a diehard Michael Jordan fan. I was there for those '90s Bulls teams, and I have watched The Last Dance on Netflix. I mean, I would be curious to see what the numbers are internally. I would say pound for pound, when I'm up against anybody else out there that's watched that, I've watched it like a million times. And so I think about Michael Jordan flu game, that's the famous flu game, and then a bunch of his things. A lot of times when I think about that performance, or I think about another example of flow state is like, you look at any of these people that do endurance sports. And of course, we'll mark the time. David, our producer, mark the time, David. It's 17:52 before I mentioned CrossFit. I'm a CrossFitter. So that's the old joke about CrossFitters is that you don't have to, CrossFitters will tell you that they're CrossFitters, right? I'm butchering the joke, but it's basically
Yeah,
like
it's
you don't
like
have to
being
ask,
vegan. It comes up.
they will come up. So anyway, I'm mentioning CrossFit, but there's some, greats in that sport, Rich Froning, Matt Frazier, Tia Claire Toomey. And when I think about these people and I think about these incredible flow states that they get into, I think about the number one thing that I think about is it's the distraction free, but it's also the level of preparation. It's the preparation that it takes to be able to get into flow state. So I'm curious, how does Sukha kind of account for that? Because that's oftentimes what I think about is that it's less so about the okay, now let's get into a flow state. A lot of it is that you can get into a flow state because you've done the work to be able to prepare yourself to get into that flow state. You have practiced what you're practicing. You've thought consciously about it. You have prepared. I make cold calls every day for my business. And the way that I can get into a cold flow state for that is because I've done the work to really research who I'm calling. So, yeah, how do you kind of think about that, the preparation when it comes
Yeah.
into
So
your app?
what you said is a very smart way of approaching this, which is what Mihai wrote, and then subsequently many smart people have researched around this, right? The different aspects, the music, the way to mentally prepare, right? So it is like a muscle, like many habits, as Duhigg would say, Clear would say, right? So you have a sense of everyone agrees it takes you like 15 to 23 minutes to drop in. You don't sit down and say, I'm in flow, and you're deeply focused, right? So there are conditions precedent you can set to help you get there and that help you stay in it. Because every time you get interrupted, it takes you another 15 to 23 minutes to get back into that state, right? So that said, it's kind of a precious thing. So how do you do that? Number one, you need to set aside time. Like in between Zoom meetings, you're not going to get into flow for 9 minutes while you're returning emails, right? So you sort of have to say, you know what? There is something important I need to do. It is going to take an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. And you set that aside and it's a meeting with you. So people don't book time over it, right? And in that time, here's some of the things you can do to get into it. Number one, lots of research on music. The sweet spot for most people is 60 to 90 beats per minute. Certain key signatures, non vocal, ambient, rhythmic music. Now, we all have the friend that's the outlier. It's like, I listen to show tunes, 90s gangster rap, death metal, whatever, right? But for most people, that is it. I'll tell you, when we launched Sukha, I have a bunch of friends who are film composers, obviously, who had time on their hands. And I was like, here are kind of the guidelines, what the research shows. Can you write me? And there were like 1,000 hours of music, right? So in doing that, talking to the members of our community, it's interesting how a number of people asked about naturescapes. Oh, I love listening to rain, to streams, to surf, to birds around the lakes. We launched all those. Binaural beats. You played with binaural beats.
I was about to say exactly. Yes, you
Boom.
took the
There
words
you
out of my
go. Yeah.
mouth. Yes.
We launched some binaural playlists. And for those playing at home,
Yeah.
just, binaural is when the left and right channels going into your brain are slightly
Mm-hmm.
offset. So you have to have headphones for that. You can't just listen on your Mac speakers for that. What were you
Oh,
going to say,
that's
Tyler?
cool. I was gonna say, you nailed it. It's funny. So I'm a huge Spotify, listener. Every year I get my whatever it's called, my end of year, Spotify Wrapped, right? And it's always funny because my top artists always surprise people because of two components to it. One is I listen to a lot of music when I work, and the other part is that I have a 4 year old, basically 4 year old girl. And so it's always funny because my top five will typically be like whatever, it's all across the board. But then there'll be these kind of outliers of sorts, right? So I'm going to venture a guess that this year, probably my top five is going to be like Taylor Swift, Sabrina Carpenter, Maren Morris, all artists that my daughter loves. Uh, Chapel Roan is the latest one. But the other outlier is I listen to a ton of movie soundtracks, composers specifically.
Ooh,
And
which
yes,
composers?
so I love, well, who's the big one? Is it John Williams or
John
who was the one
Williams,
that,
Ennio Morricone, like, yeah,
so whoever
Hans
did
Zimmer.
Interstellar, Hans Zimmer is great. Did he do Interstellar? Who did
I believe so.
Interstellar?
Yeah, he worked with Nolan a bunch. Yeah.
But I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Ooh,
I love Nine Inch Nails. I love Trent Reznor, and Trent Reznor and his partner. They've done a number of scores. I love The Social Network. I love some of the other stuff that he does. I think he's even done like a Pixar movie.
I will
So
tell you a funny
yeah.
story.
Mm.
If you ever seen David Fincher's movie Seven, you seen that?
That's the one with Brad Pitt.
Correct. Brad Pitt, Morgan
No,
Freeman, Gwyneth.
I need to see it. I've seen the famous ending because it was spoofed a long time ago, MTV Video Music Awards. So I know the ending of that movie, but I need to see it. I've heard it's incredible, and David Fincher
If you
obviously is talked about, raved
if
about.
you ever watch it, I produced the main and the end titles and the visual effects for that movie.
So
And
I will watch it for sure. It's a
yeah,
classic.
Trent gave us a cut of Closer where all it
So
has
cool,
is the button of Closer to God. It's all instrumental as you're watching the
amazing.
the opening title, and at the very end
Yeah,
it just has this button where it goes Closer to God. And the whole opening, what Fincher wanted is he said, I had all of these props created for John Doe, the Kevin Spacey character, that are real. He's like, these crazy notebooks you see on the shelf, pull anyone down. The prop department made real notebooks with like fingernails super glued in there and like cockroaches stapled and stuff. So we went to town and shot this like inside the mind of John Doe for the opening titles. If you ever see it, I produced that.
I'm so excited to check it out. That's really cool. Yeah, so anyway, you totally nailed it. I love working to that stuff, and it makes all the sense. It helps me get into a flow state.
There you go. Oh, so we were talking about flow states. So some of the components, right? What you talked about with Brick, which is a great product if you want to go buy, hardware and do all that stuff, right? I am semi lazy or semi, I don't like friction. So what we did was super simple is because my phone does distract me while I work, especially when I hit an obstacle. Like I'm writing a blog post and it sucks. I know I have to rewrite it and I get frustrated. I reach for my phone to like check my WhatsApp or whatever.
Of course, yes.
We did the simplest thing. When you open Sukha in the morning and you hit play and then the flow music starts and all that, a QR code pops up. I can tap with my phone, put my phone down. If I touch my phone, my smart assistant, my computer speaks to me and says, hey, do you really need to be on your phone? And it just gives me that 1 second to say, who do I want to be? Do I want to be the guy who actually gets shit done? Or I want to be the guy who's like complaining at the end of the day how I was busy, but nothing got done?
Totally,
So
100%. Yeah,
it's that kind of
and
thing. Like
for
we made a Chrome extension. This
yeah,
just watches what websites you open. So if you open something that's on your distraction list, like, hey man, keep me off ESPN or whatever, if you
yeah,
open ESPN, you just get a little pop up that goes, hey man, is ESPN helping you? It seems like a distraction. And you get to choose. You get to choose who you want to be. And that's what I
yeah,
think it is. I thought a lot of like, if I had a friend sitting next to me during the day, helping
yeah,
me to be my best version of myself, that's what he would say. He'd just be like, hey man, I see you're opening ESPN. Like, Steven, is that really helping you get out of here on time? And I'd be like, actually, it's not,
yeah. Totally. It's like you're preaching to me. ESPN is. I've got most stuff blocked. but I find myself, I have most stuff not on my phone, social
Mhm.
media wise, and
Good.
so it's so funny. I my top three websites are like, because I don't have them blocked, is like ESPN, because I'll just go to ESPN and look at the whatever the headlines
Of
are,
course.
or like right now I know this is all getting confusing because I grew up in Chicago, and then I also spent though like high school years in and middle school years in Philadelphia. So anyway,
Oh,
MLB
really?
playoffs are MLB playoffs are coming up, so I'm kind of checking out the Phillies. And I'm here in LA, so the Dodgers too. But um,
That's
anyway, so now here we are getting distracted. But yes, I that all relates a lot. I want to bring it back to the topic that I am very passionate about, which is remote work. How do you think about Sukha in terms of remote work? So I'm obviously a big supporter, but there is something that I get it when I see companies talk about the lost productivity.
okay. So I'm going to give you two parts of that answer. Okay. And the first part, I want to push back on something implicit in what you said, which is a lot of the RTO tug of war with remote or hybrid is really about bad hiring. And I know you're very involved in the process of choosing talent, matching talent with jobs, right? So if you are a leader, if you're a good leader, there are two big things that you do. You declare a mission. Hey, we're here to cure cancer, man. We're here to like clean the environment. We're here to make, the best rom-coms in the studio. You declare a mission and you declare a set of values. This is our culture. This is how we're going to treat each other. We're going to treat our customers. We're going to treat our competitors. And if you do those two things well, you attract people who are aligned with that. And let me tell you, if you as a leader are going, I really don't know what the hell Tyler's doing right now. It's 3 o'clock on a Tuesday. He's working from home. That means you didn't hire well. Because let me tell you something. If I'm out to cure cancer and Tyler came here because his dad died of cancer, I don't need to see you at 3 p.m. You are moving the ball down the field. And if I'm hiring Tyler, who has an Indeed, surfing resume of 5 jobs in 6 years, then I'm an idiot. So it's hiring is fundamental.
I totally agree. Yeah, it'll come up when I'm talking to prospective customers of Higher Frame, and they say, "Well, what happens if the person doesn't work out?" And what I oftentimes point to is I'm like, listen, you don't need to babysit the person to understand if they're doing their job or not, because it's all about inputs and outcomes, right? A lot of employees can't set their own inputs, at least not initially. It's
Mhm.
hard for them to be able, because they don't have the view of the field that you do as the business owner
Yep.
or the executive, right? And so you can get that, you can build that over time. But really, it's about, to me, to setting people up for success. It's about being crystal clear in what the inputs are and what outcomes you're trying to achieve. And the inputs to me are the non negotiables. It's, hey, we've decided collectively as a group, this is what we're doing. And so we need to be able to see this thesis through, we have to be able to execute on our inputs. But to be clear, if we execute on the inputs and the outcomes aren't what we're looking for, then guess what? It's back to the drawing board and you will never be terminated because of the outcomes, right? You're terminated because you don't do the inputs. And to me, if the inputs are missing, that should be evidently clear. And that's just a person that, whether you're in an office or you're remote, I totally agree with you. That's the wrong hire. If someone can't execute on the agreed upon inputs, that's just the wrong, or and more importantly, too, I'll say a lot of people just aren't good enough at raising their hand and asking for help. That to me is like the total unacceptable thing, is when people are like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just didn't want to bother you. I'm like, well, that is a lost, you're going to get lost in the sauce here.
As a leader, you need to create that environment. And I'm going to tell you a little story that takes us off track for like 60 seconds, but it really illustrates
Do
this,
it.
which is when I made it in my career to DreamWorks, right? And I was an engineer who fell into film and then suddenly had a career that's going well. I remember the first time I was in Steven Spielberg's conference room, right? The Navajo rugs and the whole thing and the Southwestern Adobe style. Right? And I'm like, no matter if I'd earned my way there, there was a moment in my first meeting as conference room where I was like, OMFG, I'm sitting 4 feet from Steven Spielberg and the chairman of DreamWorks and the writers and the producers. This, like, wow, this is my life today. What? And I remember we were talking about something, and out of respect to Steven, I'm going to falsify the details of this, okay? But we were working on an alien movie, developing an alien movie, and Steven has done a bunch of them, right? This is a guy who's thought about aliens, right? So he brought up something that it was like, let's say he said, okay, so the alien comes through the wall and then they encounter X, which we learn now is going to be their kryptonite. And someone who is sort of the, let's say the coffee boy was coming through the room at that time and chimed in and said, actually, I feel like we just saw that coming through the wall kind of beat with the kryptonite thing in this other movie last summer. Maybe it should be something else. And I thought to myself, oh, that's the last time we'll see Coffee Boy alive.
Yeah, he'll just an alien will come through the wall and
Right.
gobble him up.
He will be in the dumpster in little pieces after this. And
Yeah.
without blinking, Stephen thought for a few seconds and said, yeah, that's better. We should do that. And the meeting continued on as if nothing had happened. And that was the game played at the level where you are not precious about your ideas. And as the leader of that entire company, Stephen made it clear best idea wins, not my idea wins. And that affects everyone in the company. So that is a leader setting a condition where, like you're saying, someone can raise their hand and go, hey, boss, what about this? And it's not like, oh, God, will I get fired because it goes against what my boss suggested, right?
Yeah.
So let me pick up on something you said a moment ago, though, because I know you just want to hear me talk endlessly, which is what I love, right? So let us peel back what you said a moment ago, one level deeper, which is we talked about, hey, man, hire, when you're matching people with jobs, you want to align their values and their intention. They want to be into the mission. And that takes away a lot of the problems of like, are you working? Are you, are the inputs the right inputs, right? But here's the thing I think is even deeper. If you fundamentally have a thesis, as I do, that we all have something great inside us, and the question of this lifetime is, are you going to get it out or not? Then if you're a leader, you really view your job as giving people the opportunity to get that out, to draw out of them the greatness. Just like when you were talking about, like the Bulls in that era, it was like, how am I going to have this guy be the best point guard ever, the best rebounder ever? Give them the room to do the greatness that they have inside, because it sucks to be that guy or girl at 80 years old who's sitting on the sofa, been like, oh yeah, I could have done, I had that idea. I could have written that book. I could have started that company. I could have like done that restaurant, but I was, no, man, don't die with it inside you. And if you're a leader, that's your job to go, I need to size up everyone on my team that I have hired well and go, you are going to be great at this. This is what's inside you, and we're going to unleash it. And that's why we're going to win. And that I think is really great. And it's not about being under the same fluorescent lights 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. No, it doesn't effing matter. It matters that someone is here going, I am getting to sing my song. This is what I was meant to do, and I'm going to crush it for my team.
I love that. And by the way, you're like lofting me or you're tossing me a wonderful softball to like
Ooh,
smack out of the park here.
go,
I'm
go.
going to I'm going to do a what worked first here, and I'm going to do a callback to another what worked episode. Anybody who's listening, and Steven, if you haven't checked it out, you should check out this episode. We had an incredible episode with Mike Lemire, and he talked about a I don't want to call it a concept because it's a lot more than that, but it's basically a I don't know. It's kind of like a leadership structure style. How to? Mike is probably shaking his head like no, no. But Mike Lemire talks about situational leadership, and what you just touched on is exactly what situational leadership is all about. Basically, there's these two things that are kind of at play with any employee, team member, etc. Right? Which is it's marrying their desire to do something with their actual ability to do something. And the example that he gave was he had a team member who he basically charged with helping them to the company to find basically a new office space to lease out. And the person had all of the desire, but they
Mhm.
had none of the ability or capability to
I
do
haven't been
it.
trained to
And
do
it's
that.
that's exactly it. And so it's like, hey, if you can kind of understand there's essentially these four kind of like phases, four quadrants where people might be, if you can
Mhm.
understand where they are on that X and Y axis,
Yeah.
then you can understand how to get them to the end state, which is where you have both. They have desire to do the job, and they also have they also have that capability, right? But you're totally right. It's like that greatness is within you. I think the common miss sort of nomer is that most people say this person stinks, get them out, and they don't kind of understand that everybody is kind of different. Everybody has a different. There's that book that talks about your working genius. Everyone has a different genius, and it's about understanding that. There's a phrase we use all the time at Higher Frame. We certainly didn't coin it, but we say no sacred cows, right? We say
Yes.
that there are no, just because myself and my co-founder Mike say something
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we know what we're talking about, doesn't mean that it's the right thing. Anybody has the right to challenge us always,
Yeah.
and come up with your own ideas. And if it works for the group, guess what? We'll pursue that. So yeah, that's really, really cool. I
But
totally agree. Greatness is with all of
your
us.
pod is called What Worked? And
What
what you're
worked?
getting
Yes.
at here, what we're talking here, I think is really the foundation of that, which is why it worked.
Yeah, that's it. No, totally. Yeah, without a doubt. And it's funny, when you mentioned that getting that genius out, I think that's the entire, people oftentimes have asked me what's the theme of this pod, and I wish I could give something clean. If I wish I could say something super specific, like we talk to people that own plumbing businesses
Right.
and we talk about how they go
Men in
from,
garages.
yeah, men in garages. That's what it should be called, right? But it's like we talk about how to grow a plumbing business from $0 in revenue to $1 million a year, right? Whatever.
Mhm.
No, but that is the podcast summarized. Is it's about finding that greatness, which for many of the people that come on here, that comes through a lot of time and sacrifice and 10,000 hours. And at the end of it, you kind of look up and you're like, oh, yeah, that worked. And let me talk about it.
How do you instill the idea you just articulated into your daughter? How do you express that to
Hmm.
her?
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, the thing that I think about very consciously, and this is people talk about this all the time, is, and especially with young girls, is and by the way, I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. This is me not just mansplaining. I'm gonna give this is information that's passed along by my wife. What I try to do very actively is I try to be very intentional with my words to her. And the thing that people talk about in modern parenting is they talk about applauding effort versus outcome.
That's a theme with you.
That's it. It's the inputs, and I try to show her that. I'll give a good example. Just yesterday, I was cooking with her, and I cook with her all the time. There's a book that's very popular among parents called Hunt, Gather, Parent, and it's about this woman. I think she was from the New York Times. She ended up traveling the world and sort of witnessing parents in different cultures, and she took away these incredible lessons. And one of them is she visited this Mayan village down in Mexico, and she saw that the children of any age were so willing and able to help out. It was the type of thing where they woke up in the morning, they didn't say, Mommy, Daddy, where's my breakfast? They went and immediately started to do the dishes, to prepare breakfast. And this is at very, very young ages. The idea was basically like everybody is a part of the tribe, everybody has a responsibility to contribute. And there is no you're too young to contribute. So the
Hmm.
idea is you also put them into situations where most people would say that's crazy. For example, in cooking, to give a child a knife, right, is very scary.
Dangerous.
But
Yeah.
exactly, very scary and dangerous. But the idea is that you allow them these situations where you are there to support and to supervise. So you're not going to let them stab themselves, but you're also going to allow them to literally crack some eggs, literally make a mess. And my daughter did say something when we were cooking yesterday. She said something to the effect of, she said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I made a mess. And I said, do not apologize for the mess. I said, you are trying. And that's what I appreciate it. I do not care if you get the whole kitchen a mess. We are learning. And she says, that's right. I'm learning. And so those are the types of words that we talk about as we talk about effort. We talk about trying. What I avoid is the classic parent pitfall, which is you always say, good job. Oh, you tied your shoes. Good job. I try to focus on, I say, hey, I noticed that you were really trying to put on your own shoes there, and it took you a while. And then I do the thing where I say, how does that feel? And it felt pretty good to put on my own shoes. I feel good. Cool. Remember that feeling. So anyway,
Tyler,
you got me on
so
a Good
I
rant there.
came I came here today to share things I'm passionate about to help people about how to be
Yeah.
intentional and flow states and all that. I'm
Hmm.
going to have my first child in 6 weeks. I'm having a son in 6 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
And
Okay, cool.
I appreciate what you just gave me because I've been thinking a lot about how to be a good dad. And that
Yeah.
was really powerful what you just said that I will take in my life.
Yeah.
Whether this makes the podcast or not, that will
Yeah.
affect how I treat my son.
That's so cool. And this will definitely, we don't really cut things. And I am very passionate about, as you can see, we talked about a bunch of stuff, but I can talk about parenting, music, movies all day long. Congrats to you. That's so exciting.
Thanks. Super excited.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Is there anything on your, this is, I'm just curious off the rip here. Is there anything that's on your mind? Anything that you're, how are you feeling? I guess too. I know it's an annoying question, but how are you guys, doing? How are you feeling personally
I appreciate
about
your
this?
asking. We were at the OBGYN this morning, did
Cool.
one of the growth ultrasounds, seeing little
Sure.
reconstruction of what his face looks like, his little arm that's like
Oh,
right over his
yes.
forehead and stuff.
You
And
me you mentioned aliens before, by the way.
yeah,
It's they're
right, they kind of
aliens.
look like little aliens. Yeah.
Yeah, they totally.
Amazing. My dad came. He's super happy. He's going to be a granddad. Like, it was just a really great moment of, this is what I'm going to be focused on the rest of my life is, making sure I'm a good dad. And that's a novel thing in my life. So,
That
yeah, super
that's
excited about that.
incredible. Well, I'll give you two things because everyone gives you unsolicited parenting advice.
Oh,
This is
oh,
not
they
really. This
do.
is
I know.
just
Hit me. What do you
I'm gonna
got?
do. I'm gonna do two remarks and I'm gonna keep it at that. Right. One's not even advice. It's more like I'll keep the theme of this conversation. Your children are they're like a bulldozer when it comes to breaking into um, your flow state because you have no choice. They are a physical brick and following you around a physical Sukha. Um, it's incredible because as they get older, they can literally find you and they will remind you constantly. They are reminding you of what's really important in life and you have no choice. I just don't know I don't know how anybody is I get it how people can maybe not be great parents, but I just think that at the end of the day, children, they will tell you what they need eventually, right? So whether it's through sounds or physical touch or words later on, but they will break you into the flow state.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Something that you don't know to ask, but I'm going to share with you is I chose this really weird name for my company. I know it's weird, right? I'm going to tell you why I chose that. So, Laura and I met in yoga. I married the girl on the yoga mat to my left, right? We've been together 10 years. When we had a working version of this app, this flow state app, with a working title, we were going on our honeymoon, which when you do a lot of yoga, you go to Bali and, I was very grateful we could go there, hang out, right? Do yoga and hang on the beach. So I said to Laura on the trip, I was like, you know what? I'm hoping the next 10 days the universe speaks to me and gives me some great name. The way Amazon is not called like bookstore online or something, or Nike's not called like, like
Sure.
shoe place, right? And I want
Yeah.
something that's better than flow state app or like distraction blocker. She's like, I wish that for you. Good luck, right? So we got there and I said, I think something that would seed my unconscious is, do you mind if I did like maybe 2 or 3 quick Zooms with current like beta testers we have and just say, what do you like about this? I see you using it every day. She said, go for it. I'm going to the pool. I'll see you at dinner, right? So I talked to 3 people for 10 minutes. I said, I just want 10 minutes of your time. And I asked them, what's your favorite thing? So we talked about, do you love the music? Do you love the smart assistant, the timer, the distraction block, whatever it is, right? Third guy, I was going to my wrap up. Hey, Tyler, thanks. I asked for 10 minutes. It's been 10 minutes. I'm going to let you go. I really appreciate your input. And the guy cut me off. And he said, Steven, you asked the wrong questions. And I was like, okay, dude, I do not know that well. I'll take the bait. Like, what's the right question? And he said, you should have asked me why I pay you. And I was like, we charge like $10 a month. So it's not like a Birkin bag or something. Okay. Well, why do you pay me? And he said, I find in the past year or two, I have two kinds of days. At 3 o'clock, I can be playing with my kids. They're 2 and 4 right now. Or at 6 o'clock, I can be down myself. I was busy all day. Why didn't I get the important stuff done? I'm miserable. He said, I realized the difference is, did I hit play in the morning in your app when I started working? So I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever.
That's cool.
And I
Yeah,
was like, wow,
yeah,
okay. And I turned
so
to
cool.
Laura at dinner and I told her, I was like, I spoke to this dude who's more articulate than I am about what I'm doing. She's like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
really good. We were going to bed, brushing our teeth. And she looked at me, she said, in yoga, we hear all these like Sanskrit concepts, like, your karma and your dharma and your prana life force. It's like that dude said to you, Sukha, that feeling he
yeah,
wants to be in control of his life, doing what he's meant to do, doing it well. It's about having that time with his kids. It's
totally.
not naming it after what it does, it's naming it after how he wants to feel. And I bought the
Yeah,
Sukha Company website that night from bed in Bali for 14 bucks.
that's so cool. And shout out that guy. Do you know his name by any chance? We can
I
give him a
still
shout
see
out.
him working in, now we call it Sukha, but I still see him in
Yeah,
there. I'm
that's
very
so
proud.
cool.
The people who do the 7-day free trial and
Yeah,
actually do it and get into flow and go, this is cool, we have
yeah,
94% paid retention month over month. Because once
that's
you do
killer.
it, you're like, why would I work any other way?
Yeah, that's amazing.
So anyway, you had two
I'm
things though, and I interrupted you because we were talking about
no
spending time with your
worries.
kids. That
That's
guy
such a
named my
cool
company.
No, that's such a cool story, and it's very relatable too. I think about a current customer of ours. This is my side tangent, but I can totally relate to what you just said. When I was talking to her about the requirement, I was like, "Well, who's doing this work today?" And she was like, "I'm doing it, and I'm doing it on the weekends, and I'm doing it in lieu of basically spending time with my kids." And so, totally, it's that value beyond. We have a very literal name, Hire Frame. It's all about hiring people and sort of a frame of your mindset to building teams globally, the modern day of scaling. To bring it back full circle to flow state. Now we've talked about a bunch of stuff, right? And I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to bring in
Hmm.
parenting. We talked about flow state in athletics, and
Yeah.
when you see some of these great, I think of like some of these great athletes. Tiger Woods comes to mind.
Yes.
Now the kind of current Tiger Woods esque person would be Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah.
And when you see these people and they talk about winning these golf majors, right?
Hmm.
There's of course skill, the thousands and thousands of hours of practice that go into it. But oftentimes, what they talk about when they win that major is they talk about the mind state, the mindset that they have, and the flow state that they get into.
Hmm.
And specifically, and this is where I'm going to relate it to parenting in the majors, what happens when you see someone take a leap? A lot of times you'll have somebody in a golf major who consistently, the greatest example is he just won, not a major, but Tommy Fleetwood could not get over the hump and win a golf tournament, right? He had like the most second place finishes of, I think, in recent time, right? So he just couldn't get to that next place. And what he talked about when he finally won is he talked about the big change for him was not allowing a bad hole to stay with him. He would sort of wash it away and just move on to the next hole. And you hear all these great athletes talk about that because they say these bad holes are going to happen. And specifically in fatherhood, I don't know how you are. One of my big things that I had to personally work on is that I'm a person that desires to be perfect, like a lot of other people that want to be high performers. And I really struggle when something doesn't go well. I really struggle to get out of my own head. I'm almost kind of paralyzed by it. And that's where I think there's such a great connection to flow state in fatherhood. Is I really learned that there'll be times when you're going to lose it, right? Your patience is not endless, and kids are really great about testing boundaries. And a big thing for me in learning how to be sort of a better dad was it's less so about getting it right per se, and it's more so about when you get it wrong you got to just let it wash over you and it's on to the next hole. Because kids actually, it's weird. They have a very long memory in the sense of trauma. We're all shaped by trauma,
Yeah.
specifically our most of it's childhood trauma. So,
Yeah.
yes, children will remember the things that you do. And the thing my wife and I always joke about is that there will come a day where our kids will tell us exactly why we suck and why we're the worst parents ever. That will happen. That's a rite of passage, is what we kind of see it
Yeah.
as. But at the same time, though, kids also have like no memory. And so, like, they're like losing their minds. And then the next second, they're like, I lost my mind. They're like, what are you talking about? So, as a parent, I try to just remember that. and just try to say, it's on to the next hole. It's on to the next at bat. It's on to the next play.
That's a great way of thinking about it. Okay.
Yeah, and you just got to let it flow over you, because it's almost worse when you carry it with you. They can feel that. So that's my one bit of true unsolicited
Thank you. I
advice.
will leave it on the last hole.
There you go. My last question for you is,
Ooh, can't
for
wait.
anybody listening to this episode, where can they find you if they want to reach out to you, and what do you want them to reach out to you about?
Oh, that is a
So
very nice question. I will tell you two things. If there's anything we've talked about where someone in the audience is like, oh, I'd love to learn more about that, it doesn't have to do anything with what I do for a living, but it's like, who's Cal Newport, or what's that reference you made to the Hungarian dude or whatever? My email address is very public. It's Steven with a V at the Sukha, TheSukha .co for company. All right. So Steven at the Sukha Company. And email me. I will send you back a blog post or some link or something to help you on your path of learning how to, manage your intention, manage your day. I get back to all my emails in 24 hours or less if I'm not sick or traveling. So that's an open offer. And if someone doesn't want to learn more about their own flow state and see, can they get their work done faster? Choose something you have to do. Like, have a task that's going to take you a half hour, an hour to do. Go to our website. It's free for 7 days. No BS, no credit card. Try it. It's thesukha, TheSukha.co. And if you dig it, like, drop into the group chat and say hi. Be like, hey man, I heard you on what worked, and this is really helping me. Because that's why I do it. I don't collect a salary. I just do it because so many people have done cool things, and I think it's cool.
So cool. Well, yes, definitely. If anybody is listening and you want to talk to Steven about anything, he just made a very open offer. So email him, reference what worked, please.
Mhm.
And as I always say, as we end every episode, if you are listening to this episode and you think there's someone great like Steven who you think would be a fantastic guest, maybe that's you. Yes, you listener. Please reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. My email is very easy to find as well. It's just Tyler@higherframe.com. Shocker. So Tyler. But yes, please do reach out, and we love to hear from our listeners, and of course future guests as well usually come from that. So Steven, thank you for your time. I'm going to go ahead and get into my flow state, so I'm going to exit this. But I greatly appreciate you coming on the pod, and I loved talking all things parenthood, movies, music, etc.
Lot of ground
Um,
covered. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for listening. And Dave, thank you for making us sound good.
Awesome. All right, everybody. We will catch you on the next one. Bye bye.